I think one of the things that I've really tried to impart, and our organization, BANA, has really tried to impart on the North American mineral spring community, is that there is a very deep tradition of these thermal springs not only being a source of health and wellness practice, but actually being an attraction, a place people would go. And oftentimes the towns around these springs would be in support of that. And in Europe and really around the world, that concept hasn't fallen away the way it has in North America. And so what we're going to hear about today is this wonderful association, the European Historic Thermal Town Association, that has really done the work of bringing these towns where these spas exist, where these geothermal resources exist, where health and wellness practice has been ongoing for decades, if not centuries, bring these towns together to really support each other and really broadcast the message of what's possible, not just even in the water, from the water, but for the town, and the larger message of economic and health and wellness, tourism, prosperity. And with that said, I think we're usually about 5 minutes in. There's always stragglers. That's no problem. I'm going to just introduce briefly my friend and colleague, Simone Zagronik, and she is with the European Historic Thermal Town Association. And as I mentioned, the association's been around since 2010, and they have members towns from all over Europe and beyond Europe. And we're going to hear a little bit about exactly their reach and the bridge that we're trying to build across the Atlantic between thermal towns in Europe and thermal towns in North America. So again, BANA has been really pushing since our inception to reawaken these kind of classical spa towns and reclaim the identity of these towns as being health and wellness destinations, and working with the chambers of commerce and the city governments to really broadcast that identity. And so we're going to hear a little bit about how they're successfully doing that in Europe, and hopefully inspire some of you on this call to get involved and really help with building this bridge forward. That said, Simone, I'm gonna pass everything over to you to introduce your association and share with us today. Thank you so much. It's obviously she's calling us from Europe, and it's much later there than it is here. So we appreciate you taking the time to speak with our association today.
Thank you very much, Marcus. And thanks for having me and inviting me. And hello, everyone. And it's great to see one super familiar face. Jonathan, hello, because you have been there. You were there in the Saratoga Springs, and we just met a few weeks ago. Yeah, I just would like to dive into my presentation with you because Marcus, yes, you gave a great introduction. And I would say I'm sharing my slides, and then hopefully later we have some time to just, discuss or your questions. I'm just sharing my screen and take you a little bit now on first our European journey. Let me see. I hope that works. Can you see it? Yeah, okay. So my name is Simone Zagronik. I am based here in Germany, actually very close to the spa town of Wiesbaden, close to Frankfurt. And I have been the executive director for the European Historic Thermal Towns Association for 4.5 years now. And before that, I actually was working as director of marketing in Wiesbaden for 15 years. So that's where I discovered my love to the spa heritage and the hot springs, actually. So the European Historic Thermal Towns Association, I first introduced our network. And as Marcus just mentioned, we were actually founded in 2009 in Brussels by 6 spa towns, and some of those names should be quite familiar among them. For example, Bath in the UK, Vichy, and Spa. We are registered as a non-profit association in Belgium, and we are one of the cultural roots of the Council of Europe. I will say a little bit about this in a few minutes, just to explain more. So the basic idea actually was when those mayors actually met 15 years ago to create a network of municipalities that are meeting certain criteria. And this is today also more or less the frame for a membership. An important spa town in European history, the active use of thermal water, thermal heritage, thermal architecture, as we call it, has to be present. And you definitely need to see that this town has developed as this place of health and as this place of, seeking health and well-being, minimum actually back to the 19th century. So this is roughly the criteria you have to meet. Today, we are 51 members in 18 countries in Europe, plus 2 international partners. And if you look at this map, that it is actually stretching from Portugal all the way to Georgia and Turkey, which is more for us not only limited, let's say, to the European Union, it's really the continent of Europe. And talking about 2 international partners, we are very happy that Saratoga Spa State Park in Saratoga Springs is our international partner, and Pocos de Caldas in Brazil. And it is more what I will explain to you, what you will now more understand the way we're working and why we are actually so happy and keen on creating a larger network and connecting to spa towns out of Europe. I briefly mentioned the membership categories. So there are 3 categories that we actually have. Of course, active members, they are called active members. Don't ask me, it's Belgian law. So the towns actually and the municipalities meeting our criteria are called active members. But then, of course, here in Europe, we also have regions that have a lot of thermal springs, hot springs, and very active use. And to give those governments and even private institutions the chance to join the associations, we have that category of membership. Outside of Europe, and that is, for example, Saratoga Springs and the one in Brazil, those are our international partners. And basically, thermal spa towns out of the country that meet roughly our criteria and especially support our mission. Those destinations, those thermal towns, we are happy to welcome as international partners. Speaking of our network, and this is where I just want to mention especially a very special group of 11. You might have heard about it. There is a network of 11 towns in 7 countries that are considered one UNESCO World Heritage Site. And on the left side, the list of these really grand spa towns, they are considered the crème de la crème of the spa towns in Europe. And they have been inscribed in the World Heritage List for 3 years now. And we are really happy that all of them are in our network or also a member. To understand what I will describe later in the way we work, I have to quickly mention the cultural roots of the Council of Europe again. So basically, here in Europe, you probably know the Camino de Santiago, the St. James Way, the famous pilgrimage route in Spain. And that was actually the first cultural route that was certified. And now there are about 48 of them. And the basic idea is that you have thematic routes or just themes that represent a rich European history and heritage, and to promote it and also just give the cultural aspect a better organizational frame. Many of them are organized as associations, as networks, and their label is, in a way, they are certified with this label. For us, it's interesting because, of course, when you look at the European map, you have, for example, the thermal towns, and usually there are other cultural routes very nearby. And for our product, and you will understand later, it's great to combine themes. And I just put a few examples here on this slide. For example, the Art Nouveau is something that you find also in many spa towns. For us, great to combine thermal water and Art Nouveau. Or, for example, you have the wine route or the olive tree. So just to give you an understanding of that. Spa towns in Europe, probably I don't have to say Not to mention too much about this. This is a typical picture of spa towns, the architecture and the assets, what you usually see. The grand buildings, the drinking halls, the theaters, fountains, the spa landscape, and especially also ancient routes and baths that you usually find, and the villas. Speaking of these places, and now you more and more understand why we appreciate to find and to have spa towns all over the world that are pretty similar to this heritage, is actually the fact that in these destinations you find this great combination of a place of health and a place of culture. We are looking at our network and at our spa towns as a very special touristic product. We see the great potential because it basically is independent from any season, at least here in Europe. 365 days, you have the chance to either look and sell health tourism or cultural tourism. And at least for these destinations, as mentioned before, they have been destinations of well-being and health by history. So people traveled to the sources and to the healing waters. Since ancient times, we have so many Roman baths. The waters were discovered and used through the Middle Ages, the heydays actually in the 19th, 18th century until today. In these places, the medical expertise and the infrastructure is there. The doctors, the clinics, it doesn't have to be invented. It's simply, it's been there, for not forever, but for quite some time. So also in Europe, these destinations were built, or they are based on welcoming guests. So the infrastructure you usually find has been developed to host guests and to welcome them. Thinking of the grand hotels, thinking of great railway stations, the impressive architecture, the theaters. So all of that is part of the touristic offer that you find. All of them, looking at the health aspect and the well-being, all of them have the big challenge that they must transform from curing the old and sick, which is very usual here in Europe, coming from the social security systems with the cures. So that transformation to destinations of well-being, prevention, and health, which is more necessary than ever to really make this turn also in market and target groups. The cultural tourism is something that is adding to this with the heritage, with the buildings, what I just described. It's a great part to add, and the advantage that these destinations have is that the cultural tourism really works the entire year, and it leaves a lot of opportunities to combine themes actually with the fact of the healing waters. Looking a bit at this and the assets that we are trying to combine, and I hope that this can be a good example and encouragement just to look at the way we work and what we are trying to do, is with one part, we have the assets of health and well-being, and we have the assets of culture. So looking at this, and then I don't have to tell you about what you see here on the screen. We have the water, the landscape, and the spa culture. And of course, all of this brings us the opportunities to have prevention, cure, and rehabilitation at the same time. The cultural aspect I also just mentioned, so this is why I don't want to spend too much time with this here now. This is the other part, the other pillar, if you want to say so, to use this. And in this combination, we are able to create a product, and we are able to attract guests, let's say, beyond the healing waters and beyond the pure aspect or the pure maybe need and desire to look for some spa experience. With all of these components, we are trying to encourage, let's say, the customers, but also the travel trade, to just think of themes, package tours, or even themed travels. We have created 3 thematic lines just to also give our members the opportunity to present themselves depending on their strength. You see here, for example, one of the leaflets or the brochures we created is therapeutic spa landscapes. What does it contain? Usually the big parks, the gardens that we have here in some of the towns. So, for example, a town like Vichy can pick this and, let's say, contribute more to that than the Roman aspect and Roman baths and spas in antiquity, for example. Many of them are great with their gastronomic offer. So, of course, if they have something special developed in the spa town, we have really crazy offers of some. For example, in Spain, one town is producing pasta with thermal water, or they are cooking a soup with thermal water. So all of these very special aspects, actually, they contribute to our, let's say, presentation of products. It's not a must. Everyone can contribute if they have something. So this is just an idea to the way we want to work, and we want to present actually, the variety that is there. Classic on the right side, what I just see is, of course, when we are talking about especially going to tourism fairs or presenting ourselves in conferences and workshops, it is necessary to bring also packages that can include the treatments, for example. That's another brochure we made. It's all free for the members to contribute. And one of the ways, at least, to how can I say, to encourage participation. Looking at our European work and the way we put here things together, I mentioned before our international partners, and this is now where I would like to jump to the United States and to Saratoga. What also Marcus mentioned, and all of you have read in the invitation. 2 months ago, we held actually the very first event dedicated to thermal heritage and our European roots in Saratoga Springs, and I would like to share with you a little bit of that. So the phenomenon of spa towns, as I described it, can be found in other places of the world. And just looking and now taking you on that journey, what you've seen from our towns in Saratoga Springs, we consider this the best example of a spa town, of a European spa town outside of Europe. These are some historic pictures, and you see the bottling, the springs, why we picked this place for the first International Spa Heritage Festival. We used to have these events, or this European Thermal Heritage Day as an event before here in some of our European towns. And the idea is really to use this event and use of conference to introduce not only experts, but the broader audience, the media, to this phenomenon and share our knowledge. Ideally, give the citizens the opportunity to join and to learn more, because I think the challenge that we are all facing around the globe, all spa towns, is that people living in the town or in this destination are not often well educated about the origin and actually the meaning and the potential of the hot waters and the spring, actually the place they are living in. So we are also facing here in Europe the challenge that people do not identify themselves with the spa town they are living in as much as they maybe did in the past. So the International Spa Heritage Festival in Saratoga Springs was, for us, together with Saratoga Spa State Park, really the first time and the opportunity to show the European heritage, but especially show and present the connection and the history on both sides of the ocean. And I think it was a very great exchange of experts and an introduction to very surprising facts. And you see here some pictures of the conference. We met also with the mayor of the city, which for us is also very essential, because not only in this case Saratoga Spa State Park, which is actually the main complex, of course they know about their history, they are aware of their importance, but the connection to the municipality and to the political level is something that is crucial, because it is important for the development of the whole place and also for any kind of collaboration, in our opinion, especially when it comes then later to promotion of the whole destination and the product. So here again, you just see some pictures of the conference itself. And we used the fact of this expert conference to host also a touristic workshop, because, as I said, for us, that was the first event in the United States ever, I think, that really was dedicated to thermal heritage, to European thermal heritage. We were about 25 Europeans joining the group. So we had 13 of our European member towns with us. And we organized a trade shop, a B2B trade workshop with the American travel trade, to use the opportunity to introduce our destinations to the Americans. And then at the same time, later on, open up and invite the public of Saratoga to actually just come and see and meet us for some further information and some introduction. So you see here just pictures from the workshop. Actually, we invited, but they were not joining us, also the American partners, of course, because we wanted to give the opportunity, once we are there presenting us as European destinations, that also the American stakeholders can present themselves. Because again, it's a lot about education, and in many aspects, it was certainly a new discovery for many people. We added a very fun part to it, also something that we are using to promote the idea of well-being, the idea of our spa towns. It's called the Bathrobe Addicts. It's a movement that comes from France, and they have been using it for almost 5-6 years now, really, as a tool to promote and to introduce again the spa culture to France and to the region of the Massif Central there. Because I mentioned earlier, they are all facing the challenge to find new ways to attract young people, to develop more private business. And this is one of the answers to that. And we were really happy to introduce this to the United States. And it's also here very strange and unusual if suddenly a group of people appears in bathrobes walking through a historic center. So it was pretty much the same in Saratoga Springs, some crazy Europeans showing up. I think that was the excuse. And Jonathan, you were part of it. I think you can comment on this in a moment, but it was quite a fun thing to do. And again, it's all about raising awareness and promoting that there's much more behind than only going to a spa. That was the experience in Saratoga Springs. And if we're looking at this global aspect and what can we do all together on a global level to promote our heritage, to promote our hot waters, that's actually for us the reason why we have been holding the International Congress on Thermal Tourism in the last 3 years officially. There were two of them in 2022 and 2023. And in June in Budapest, we are organizing the next one, and it's supported by UN Tourism, because we signed a memorandum of understanding with them 3 years ago, again with the idea to really put our thermal tourism on the global stage, to look on a global level what do we have in common, where are the challenges that we are all facing together. And so we are very happy that it will take place in Budapest this time, because it probably will bring a new quality to the conference. It will also probably attract many more people, because certainly that Budapest is like the capital of spa towns in Europe. And yeah, that is the announcement at the moment. And just one more quick slide for you, if you're interested to even join in person. We will have also a mayor's summit organized, a meeting that where we want to bring together mayors, if it's from the United States or from Europe, that mayors can meet and also talk. And we want to take the opportunity to, let's say, speak the truth of our challenges. And it's probably a bit sounds funny in the maybe at the first glance, but for example, the first session will be called The Ugly Truth, because we really want to bring on the stage the facts of the stinky, dirty waters that are healing, the great water that is actually destroying our infrastructure, the maintenance costs, the high costs of protecting the heritage. So all the challenges that we are facing. And of course, at the same time, then add and discuss the global market trends and future, and also look at sustainability projects, but real sustainability projects, and not just talking about it. So that is a bit our plan for this year. And I just can invite you if you're interested to come. Yeah, and this is basically my quick run through our situation, our work over here in Europe. And I'm just happy to now just discuss and take some of your questions, because that's probably much easier. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simone. That was a fantastic presentation. And even though I'm aware of your association and we've worked together, I even learned new things about all of what you do today. I want to kick off. Simone's graciously going to take some questions, or we can have some discussion. But I think for me, I'll just start by saying what struck me most when I think about the North American spa heritage in contrast to European spa heritage. Many of the spa towns that you showed, they were built in the 19th century. And when you think about what was happening in the United States at that time, most of the spa towns that are in operation today were just being discovered at this time, especially on the western half of the United States, of the continent. It was still, I should say, discovered by European heritage Americans. But it was the expansion into the West during that time, and these thermal sites that would be almost, in some cases, they were the only medical facility in this kind of frontier area. So we have a very different cultural relationship to these spas, especially when you consider timescale. On the East Coast, you have Saratoga Springs, of course, and a whole host of springs up and down the East Coast, including Hot Springs, Arkansas, which all of those older towns tended to model themselves in the European model. And yet, again, as you move west, things were changing a little bit. And in North America, though we don't have the same depth of the health and treatment side of things, like you mentioned, like most of these spa towns in Europe have their economic sustainability is because of these sick people coming to get treatment. And in many cases, that is supported by government insurance programs and medical care, et cetera. In the United States, we have a very strong culture of innovation as well as well-being, prevention. These things are things that we already are playing in. And so perhaps there's an opportunity to really build a good bridge there, because as we try to bring more of the medical depth, maybe there's some innovation that we can share also. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. So my hope is that everyone on this call was somewhat inspired by what you heard, and maybe you can start rethinking your own thermal region in light of not only its thermal context, but its historical context. And if you look around to say, what are the cultural elements of your town? We don't all have 19th century grand theaters and operas to showcase, but when I think of rural Oregon, or I think of the Western Colorado, pioneer towns in Colorado, there's a lot of uniquely and authentic American cultural heritage that we have to share. I just wanted to get some wheels turning there. So again, thank you, Simone. And I would love to open up the floor if anyone has questions or comments, either for Simone or something that struck you from the presentation that you'd like to bring forward. And if not, I'm going to call on Jonathan to share a little bit about his experience in Saratoga. So yes, Simone.
Just waiting. But I'm just replying what you just said. I think this is also really my encouragement for you. Of course, if there's not the deep or the rich heritage, as you just mentioned, but I think this part to invite people to discover exactly what is there in the region, to combine it. If there are vineyards, if I think about California or anything to discover, or any food, anything that is interesting to combine. And in this way, and this is what we are seeing, it's even easier to invite people and to educate them at the same time about these natural remedies and the healing, the real healing of these waters. And I think this is something that is quite generic. It's not the difference in America or in Europe. People learn or take the chance to learn more about the water, about the assets actually that are there. And that is something that we have been discussing with our new contacts now also in the American travel trade, that this part of education is so important. And this is that hot water or warm water is not a hot water, and there's a difference of heated water, tap water, and the real mineral waters. And I think this is all of our mission about the mineral waters and the healing, to really educate people. And if they are not responding maybe to the water only, it's, I think, the great chance exactly to combine this with other themes.
Fantastic. John, oh, sorry, go ahead. Jessica Meath, from the president of Hot Springs Association.
Hi. Just wanted to say thank you for an excellent presentation. Really fascinating to see how you're branching out and going across with some international partners, and would love to have kind of a continued conversation about maybe how the Hot Springs Association can partner further and be involved in maybe bringing some of these regions together. But yeah, love to learn a little bit more about what your thoughts are on that and what those partnerships could look like.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jessica. Yep. So we have my contacts. I just also put it in here in the chat, but I should have it.
Perfect. Yes, I will reach out.
I'm glad.
Sorry, Jonathan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm glad Jessica spoke first, because I was going to mention her first, because I wouldn't have heard about the Saratoga event if it wasn't for her. And this is how this is so interconnected with this network that then connects with BANA, which then was a springboard for me, for Mary, who said, well, if you're going to that, you got to look at the Global Wellness Summit, which I shared at this last Zoom call, and how the international connections between water and healing waters, and how they called it a watershed moment in wellness, and how these networks are intertwining in a way that, in the language of water, these streams are connecting into a larger river of where everyone seems to be heading in from different spaces. And what's fascinating is to see that it's left its regional areas of Colorado being one place, California, the East Coast, international, and beyond from Europe to expand. And that's the viewpoint I was able to receive in the last 8 weeks, from first Saratoga and then going to St. Andrews and seeing what's going on a larger scale. But I loved first the Saratoga experience because it gave me, as an East Coast American, another route of our shared history, and seeing it from a different angle, not from the European roots, not from the parent that brought the child into being, and seeing their version of how they approach water, how they approach wellness, was a way to expand my limited view of it just in my own little area of West Virginia. And so I'm loving seeing that this particular presenter was able to come right on the heels of all that and share it with you, because I know a lot of you had really hoped to be there, and I'd hoped to have seen you there because it would have been a lot more fun. But it was a great first event, and I hope there'll be many more of them. I'm happy to answer questions too of anyone that wants to know insider, not necessarily this time in this forum, but how that may help you in your areas. And certainly, Janet was a big encouragement for me to keep these balls rolling.
Excellent. Thanks, Jonathan, and thanks for being so generous with your time and being able to offer your opportunity to talk with folks here. And I'm just curious, What else is coming up for folks as we're hearing this? We're thinking about American spa heritage, American spa towns. Everyone here has got some connection to geothermal water and mineral spring water. What's coming up for folks in the last 5 or 6 minutes here? I'd love to hear some thoughts so we could at least start to keep these conversations moving forward. And yeah. Irene, I'm not sure if you're speaking, if you mean to be speaking to us, but you're on mute at the moment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
I was just curious about the health aspect of your association. And do you work with medical groups? Would you have associations with them that might, insurance companies that pay for visits or referrals by medical staff to the thermal sites? Do you have connections with the medical aspects
You're speaking
in
to Simone
different countries?
through Europe. Yeah.
Yes, of course. The medical part is substantial still in most of the towns and the destinations, because the cure system in Europe, or the social security, the health system, is actually based on exactly the curing, but also the medical aspect in these towns. So usually people would seek even a medical treatment and then have the rehabilitation process in the spa towns. And so that's why in many of the towns you find very specialized clinics and doctors, actually. I don't know if that answers your question, really.
Yeah, I was just following up on what Marcus said, that the American tradition is, as far as I know, and I'm no expert, it doesn't have the medical aspect to it, or it's very small in relation to, say, the cultural aspect.
And in Europe, it's different in every country, but by and large, there's a huge support for this type of therapy from national health systems. And one of the reasons that is that national health systems are not for profit, they're for outcomes. And so when that's the case, they can actually look at cost savings treatments. And there's an adage in rehabilitation medicine that if you can, say, with a knee that is degenerating due to rheumatoid arthritis, if you can stop that process and save the knee, that's going to be better for costs. That's going to be better for patient quality of life. And so if we have an effective treatment that people can go and spend a period of time once a year or every few years to keep the disease from progressing to the degenerative point where they need an operation to replace the knee, and then the subsequent kind of care that's required there, this is what happens when you have a nationalized approach to these things. It's a very different mentality. So yeah, so the point is that I believe there are also subsequent private insurances that may look at this, but by and large, and Simone, please correct me if I'm overstating this, by and large, the push for support comes from nationalized healthcare programs.
Yes, but it's changing. It's absolutely what you say. It's still the case, but it's changing. For all of you in general, just to know, it's normal in France or in Germany, for example, that the health insurance pays 3 weeks of stay in a thermal town, in a rehabilitation, in a cure, and but the subsidies are now being cut. So in other countries, like in Portugal or in Spain, there's not much of support from the state anymore. So it's exactly now what they are facing. They have to find new ways now to make money, really, from private patients, because the state subsidies and the system is changing. But of course, and this is exactly what you say, Marcus, the advantage is that people are educated about it. Though by history, they know more or less about the system, and they are aware of the healing effects of the water. So the tendency to say, I try this with this water, with this treatment, as you just described it, instead of just throwing a pill. So the attitude is more, it's different. There's another education, or maybe, you call it education, knowledge.
Yeah, I think we talk about this a lot, is how do you tell the story of what happens at these places? In Europe, you have the advantage of, at least most people, their grandparents know this. You know what I mean? It's part of the cultural heritage there. And it is part of the cultural heritage in North America, but it is largely, there's a generational gap where it was forcibly cut off, and we're looking to restore that. And this is going to be my moment to re-invite everybody on this call, and we will make another push for this through email, to come to the International Thermal Congress in Budapest this summer. This is how we can work as an international community. And for me, I've been working in this space for over a decade. And I have to say, when I go to these European congresses, it gives me such a vision of what's possible. And so I really am encouraging people from North America to come and see what's possible, because you go back to your town or your region with thermal water, or even just your spring in the middle of nowhere, and you start to rethink what's possible and how do you tell this story of the heritage that's there, not just the cultural heritage, but medical heritage, the health and well-being heritage. I really encourage everyone to consider this trip. And Budapest is an amazing city. And as Simone mentioned, they're very rich with geothermal water. Right in the middle of this beautiful Austro-Hungarian city there are these springs all around, so you can explore all these different thermal baths in the middle of the city. It's pretty unique experience. So that's my push for that. And yes, hey Jessica.
Can I just piggyback on that a little bit with our conference here in May, right before that event, so the conference will be in Glenwood Springs, which is definitely a very kind of historic spa town. And then we have a post-conference tour that we hope to be able to put together that is going to be visiting a portion of the Colorado Historic Hot Springs Loop, which I would say is probably the closest thing that we have to some of those routes that you were describing. So it could be really cool to take that experience in May and then go and present it and talk about it in Budapest. So it just make it a full travel month.
Yeah.
Great idea.
But I think this is great. And who are you inviting for this trip, for this fam trip, or how you call it? It's agents, also tourism, trade, or media. Who are you inviting?
Yeah, it'll be industry focused. So as specifically, since it's right after our conference, which is oriented toward operators or hot springs resort operators and owners. But it's certainly open to anyone that has some interest in doing that. And I would definitely encourage like destinations that have, whether it's destination marketing or municipalities, to come and understand how that has really worked, because the Hot Springs Loop is very similar in the fact that the partners that is organized and supported through are actually the destinations and not the spas. So very much about having that larger picture of the impact as like a thermal destination.
Excellent.
Yep,
Absolutely.
Yeah. We definitely have to catch up.
Yes, definitely. We have a lot to talk to you about, Simone.
Excellent. All right. If nobody else wants to weigh in thoughts or comments, I'm just going to leave.
I was curious, Simone, just, you were talking about attracting younger generations to these historical towns and spas. Just the bathrobe addict idea was fun and colorful and playful, but I was curious what else you're seeing in terms of just going into that wellness and health marketing for just young people.
Speaking of Budapest, they actually invented Sparty. And believe it or not, but probably some of you might know the pictures or have been there even, the Széchenyi bath, which is this huge, grand thermal bath. I think it's the biggest in Europe, in the world. So they're turning this once a month on a Saturday evening, they're turning this into a party zone. And they're opening the entire thermal bath. They have the light show, you get drinks in plastic cups, and it's just opening up the entire bath for a Sparty. And that was their way to say, okay, we respect, because you can imagine, especially in Budapest, by history, there are many older people every day coming to the bath. They are even playing chess in the bath. There are some famous pictures of people playing chess in the bath every day. How to really respect your older customers but at the same time attract the young ones. And they chose this way with a Sparty on Saturday evening. In the beginning, it was a big controversial discussion. But at the end now, it's exactly this. It's very successful. They have the Sparty concept and they are attracting young people. This is now Budapest, but I know it from also other of our smaller towns that have simply also copied this idea and inviting younger ones with a special concept. Or what I actually mentioned before, in Spain, in Catalonia, they're cooking the soup and they're producing the pasta with thermal water. But with this, they're telling the story to the school children, to the kindergarten, to the kids. Say, okay, this is great water. Look what we do with this. So new ways, different ways. They're even watering the gardens with it, just to show the kids the value on one side, but let's say lower the obstacle of going to a curing bath,
Right.
which is
It introduces people to the concept. This is something we work in different areas in the United States with. This is, how do you lower the barrier to entry for someone who's never been to a hot spring or thought about this as a social space or even a health and well-being space? Making it approachable and friendly is the gateway, and then you can really showcase the larger story. And this is how we actually work to build this cultural piece, is again creating the understanding, telling the story, doing the education from experience. That's the one thing I think is so special about mineral spring bathing, is once you have the experience of it, you never forget it. It's something that is now a part of you, and you can tell that story moving forward. Simone, I have to say thank you so much. I know it's late there, so I don't want to keep you a minute longer than we have to, but I really appreciate you coming here and sharing, and I hope that this can be the inauguration of a bridge that is being built between North America, is continuing to be built between North America and Europe. And I think the association that you are here representing is a major player in that. And I hope that we can find many more ways to work together and support each other's mission, because I think all of us here are on the same side of wanting to promote the message of the water. We're all here in service of the water and how it helps our culture heal and improve. With that said,
thank you very much. And please just reach out to me if there are questions, whatever, anytime. Thanks a lot.